Fab. Okay, so I'm recording that now. So what I thought that I would do was record the sort of start of it in the demonstration and then stop it or pause it so that we can spend a bit of time working through it and doing some of the first sort of applique techniques, just so that everybody doesn't have a full hour and a half's worth of video to watch. So that's the plan. So just a few things to kind of remind everyone. I've got a few little notes here. So the plan is 12 weeks. So you've got your kits, you've got 2 kits in your box. So you've got today's kit and you've got next week's kit. And what I'll probably do is maybe a little bit further down the line, just in case you want to finish a little bit early, because I know a few people said it'd be nice to have a couple of weeks before Christmas to kind of stitch it up into the quilt or whatever you're going to make. Maybe I'll send 3 kits out and we'll maybe do two in 1 week, just if you want to, but I won't do that yet. I'll do that a bit further down the line when we've all kind of had chance to get into the swing of it and know what we're doing and everything. So that's the plan. You might want to make it up into a quilt. So your squares that I've given you are 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters. So that's what we're working on. Totally up to you how you present it really at the end, and we can kind of talk about this a little bit more kind of towards the end. So you might want to kind of have your patch with a blank patch sort of either side and alternate them. So you've got your decorated patch and then a blank patch, decorated patch and a blank patch. That's completely fine. You might want to have like a really nice border in between and just border the whole kind of quilt that way and have like 3 on a row and do it like that. But there's loads of different options, and again we can sort of think about that a little bit kind of further down the line. You might want to make it into a wall hanging, which is totally fine. You might want to make it into a Christmas sack. You might want to make them into pockets. I was thinking about this today, all kinds of different things that you could do with it. You might just want to frame them. It's totally up to you, but it's kind of, the idea is that it's very much about textures. It's very much about layering. I've got a little stash down here of different fabrics, and it's all different textures. So I won't show you because it's a bit of a mess, but all different textures. So we've got things like netting, we've got silk, we've got linens, we've got different kind of gold fabrics, we've got bits of velvet and tweed, so loads of different things in there that you can use to make it really textured and really kind of interesting. So that's the sort of plan with it really. So in your kit you should have everything that you need for tonight, apart from some scissors, an iron and an ironing board. So I hope you've all got your bits and bobs that you need for tonight. Fab. And an embroidery needle as well, which you might need. Okay, so I've got an embroidery needle. You might want to use, this is an alternative, but I've put some bond web in the kit. So this is the bond web. So lots of you will have used this before, and it's got a paper side on one side and it's got like a sticky fusible webbing on the other side. Okay, so I've given you a really big piece of bond web in there. That should do you for the whole of the quilt. I'm hoping so anyway. If we run short, I can send you some more, but I kind of did measure it all out so that you had like quite a big piece in there. So just try and use that quite sparingly. So the way that I've presented the templates on here, I've tried to sort of put all of the shapes really close together so that you've got them all as tightly kind of packed as possible. And that just means that when you trace them onto the bond web, you're kind of just being as economical with that as you possibly can. Other things that you've got as well in your kit is you've got your numbers, which are inverted. So you might be thinking, oh God, what's that about? Well, that's because when we heat transfer them, they flip over and they will become the right way. So we've got all the numbers 1 to 12 on there. I've played around with the colour of these as well quite a bit. So I've gone a bit darker because I wanted them to show up on the silk. So hopefully the colours work okay with them. What else have we got? Oh, a hexagon template. So you should have in kit 1 a little template like this. And that's going to be your hexagon template, which you can keep and use for lots of the different numbers. So we're not going to stitch into this or anything. We're actually just going to use it to fold our shape around. So if you can hold on to that one as well and keep that safe. And the other thing is your threads. So you've got, I've sort of done little bundles of thread. You've got a greeny colour and you've got a beigey colour, which I can't find right now, but greeny one and a beigey one. So I've kind of reeled off quite a bit of that for you there, and hopefully that should be enough. Now, feel free if you want to swap and change these, because I know that not everybody might want to use exactly that colour thread. You might have threads at home, you might have reds, you might have burgundies, gold, whatever, where you want to bring them in, and that's completely fine as well. So you don't have to stick to that. I think it's probably a good point to say that please also feel free. So like I said in the email, if you want to change or adapt anything in this, so if you want to change the colours a little bit, so if there's a little bit where you think, oh, do you know what, I've got a really lovely bit of burgundy fabric or bit of velvet or something that would be great to go in there, feel free to do that, swap it, change the stitch. So you might think, do you know what, I don't actually want to do a chain stitch around there. That's totally fine. You can change that. And I really do like to see what everybody does. So especially in our sewing class, we all go around and we sort of have a little look at what everybody else does and get some ideas. And that's really what makes it lovely. So, you know, feel free to do that and share that with us and show us what you've done. What else have I got on my notes to say? Yeah, we've talked about Bondaweb threads, the template. So what I'm going to do today is show you the main kind of applique design technique. So we'll be using that technique kind of over and over again. So once we sort of master this, then next week and the week after, you'll be like, that's fine, I know what I'm doing with the Bondaweb. We're all good, because I think sometimes the Bondaweb can be a little bit confusing. Sometimes we get it stuck on the wrong side of our iron. Everyone's chuckling a little bit there because that happens quite often. So once you've got that mastered, we'll be kind of away with that. Then we've got some embroidery stitches. So I was going to show you those different embroidery stitches that we've got specifically on this one, and how to do the heat transfer for anybody that hasn't done it on the little hexagon there. My kind of plan is that I'm going to sort of stick to that applique technique, but each week there might be something a little bit different in there, slightly different technique that I can show you as well. So there'll be lots of different things along the way. There's some little embellishments as well on here, so beads and sequins and things on there. So shall we get started? I think that was everything I needed to mention. Yes, right. So what I should say as well is when I created this first patch, so this is a Partridge in a Pear Tree, so that might give away what the 12 weeks is going to be. I've adapted it a little bit to make it work for the kits and for the materials and things. So it's got on a slightly different background to what it started off on. So it might look a little bit kind of more raised up than yours will, and slightly different, but it will all make sense in a moment once we kind of get started. You've got a photocopy of that in your pack as well, so that you can kind of see how that works. I should mention as well that some of you might, I said this as well in the email, might not necessarily like that kind of raw edged sort of finish. You might want to use a sewing machine. You might want to do a sort of close together zigzag over here. So all the way around, you might do a really compact zigzag, and you could actually just anchor it down by doing that on the sewing machine if you wanted to. Or some of you might really like a free motion embroidery stitch. Again, that will be perfect for this project, and you'll be able to kind of work over the edges and add some detail with a free motion stitch if you wanted to. So I don't want to kind of rule anything out, because I know that some people like that kind of raw edge look and it looking layered. Other people want it to maybe look a little bit tidier, and that's totally up to you. I quite like a little bit of a raw edge. Okay, so let's get started. So I'll bring the template in there. Just have a quick drink of my water.
Charlotte, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Janet here. Sue Beadle's trying to get in on the
Oh,
meeting.
is she? Right, hang on a sec.
I don't know whether you'd locked her out or anything.
Let's have a look. Oh, I can see.
She's waiting 10 minutes to get in. She couldn't get in.
Oh, there we go.
Just told her to reinstate the numbers and hope it'll link her in.
She's in now.
Is she there?
Yeah.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Janet. That's me not checking my participants. Right, just put that over there. So, and Gail's in as well. Susan, lovely. Okay, so we're just about to get started. So I've just for those that have joined, just been talking about this and saying that we're going to get started with the sorry, waiting room. Sorry, I'm just admitting there's someone else there. Right, there we go. Oh, it's all very techy, isn't it? It's all new. Right, okay. So we're just getting started there with the applique. So some of you that have been to my sewing classes before have used Bondweb, and it's this stuff here that I was explaining about before. One side of it is papery, one side of it is more kind of rough. The rough side of it is the side that's got the webbing on. Okay, so when we draw or trace anything, we always trace it onto the paper side, but the other side is a side with the glue on, and once we heat that up, that's the side that starts to melt. So you work out really quickly if you actually put that onto your iron and it sticks on, then you know you've got it the wrong way around. Okay, so we need to make sure that we draw on the paper side. So as I was saying before, I've condensed them all into an area so that you can just use it quite economically. So we're going to trace over all of these shapes. So again, these shapes are all back to front, because when we actually get them stuck on our fabric, they end up the right way around. They flip round and end up the right way. Okay, so I'm not going to draw around all of them. I'll just show you first of all with one how that works, because I've actually, true Blue Peter styling, I've actually prepared the other ones ready so that I can cut them out and we could do them. Okay, so I've written as well on there what each of the piece is so that you kind of know which fabric to put it onto. Okay, so I've got the pear shape, which I've drawn on here, and that's going to go on the back of this greeny fabric here. So you can see on the little birds and the partridge in the pear tree, you've got the pear with this dark green fabric. So everybody's got a slightly different cut of the fabric, so that might make your design a tiny little bit different. So don't worry if you're looking and thinking, oh, that one's got a little bit of a flower on there, mine's got one there. That's because everyone's is a tiny bit different, but that's what makes it a little bit individual. So mine's kind of looking like that piece there. You've got a sort of beigey piece for the bird. You've got a lovely goldy piece here for the gold stalk bit there. You've got two different types of Liberty fabric. I was very excited when this roll came in the post. I was like, oh, don't know if I want to use it in these kits. So you've got a couple of different Liberty fabrics, which you can use for the wing and for the tail pieces there. And again, that's kind of up to you as to which, you know, you've got a biggish piece, so you can sort of change them around a little bit if you want to. And for the feathery plumes that come off, another little bit of red there. For the leaves, I've given you, so it's a tiny bit different to what you can see on there, a florally green piece for the leaves. And then you have got over here somewhere that was super organized. I don't know where they've gone. I'll have a look in a minute. But you've got a little bit of velvet for half of your leaf, and you've got a nice bit of green tweed for the other half. So some of these are layered one upon the other. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the pear because that's the biggest piece that we need to do. So on the Bondweb, I've drawn on the paper side, and then I'm really naughtily going to use my fabric scissors, which I really shouldn't be doing, to just roughly cut around the shape. Okay. And then I've got my little ironing board here. All that I would do with this is turn this onto the back of the green fabric. So this is with the rough side, okay, rough side onto the back of the fabric. That's really important. So paper side up. So if you wrote on this, if you wrote pear, you should be able to read that when you stick it on. That's probably a good bit of advice. So the textured side down, and then you're going to just iron that. So if you imagine that that's on there, you're just going to iron over with your iron until you feel like that is completely stuck down. So this is really about trial and error a little bit. So you need to just check it to make sure that all of the edges are stuck down and that you've put like a really good even heat across that. If you concentrate on an area, the other area won't be stuck down. So make sure that you completely do that. In a minute, when you peel it off, if you feel like you're peeling it back and you're thinking, oh, it just looks like it hasn't stuck properly, it looks like it's pulling off the webbing, then you kind of know that actually you haven't had enough heat on it, and you can always just put more heat back on it. So if you don't do it enough, it's fine. You can go back and we can add a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to use our scissors. So we've got the outline. I'm just going to follow that outline. Okay. And I'm going to cut that all the way around. Okay, so that's my pear shape cut out there. And then what we do with the Bondweb, so this is when we check that we make sure that it's stuck down. It should just peel off really. Someone else join in there. It should peel off really easily. Okay, so it should just peel off like that. Okay, we pull it back, and that's when we can see it's come off clean and there's kind of no sort of ripply bits on there or anything like that. So it's transferred the Bondweb onto here, and that's finished with. That can go in the bin. And then the next bit is kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. We're starting to put this together. So have a look at your photocopy, and you want that pear kind of in the middle of that patch. And then we just iron over it again. Now, really, just as the thicker the fabric, probably the more heat you need. With some of the finer fabrics and the silks and things like that, you just want to be not quite putting as much heat on. You can always turn it over as well and give it a little iron from behind. And that sticks the shape on. So it's really about kind of preparing all of these pieces and sticking them on and getting the kind of bulk of the design down on the fabric. And then once we've got it down and it's stuck in place, the great thing about the Bondweb is that you don't have any ripples or bubbles. Sometimes if we're using fine fabrics, so some of the Liberty fabrics that you've got, you'll be able to feel are a little bit of a lighter weight, they're a bit finer, but it actually means that you can use them in the same way, and it just sort of, you know, it sticks them down, it stops them from rippling, and you can do a really nice embroidery stitch on the edge of that without fear of it moving and twisting and things like that. So that's the idea. So we've got, so you can see again, if I just put my little shapes there, that I've got all of them stuck on the back of the fabrics. That one was from there. The only ones that are missing, which I thought were just over here on my table and are not right now, I'll find them in a minute, is the velvet and the tweed. So prepare them all. You can see how I've just cut roughly around the edge initially, because actually once you've got the paper and the bond web on, you've got a little bit more stability to be able to cut neatly around that shape. So it does make it a little bit easier. Okay, so if I just maybe cut out the bird and stick that one down so you can see how that works. Okay, now I've got a little bit of a glittery bird because I couldn't find another bit of the fabric that I'd given you, so I'm sorry, so don't be jealous about my glittery birds. So I'm going to put him on so you can be looking at your design as well, just to check the kind of layout of it. I want to bring him in a little bit there and just ironing that in place. And if the shapes move a little bit, that's perfectly fine as well. Okay. There we go. So that's ironed on there. So it's really is that kind of easy just to keep building it up like a jigsaw puzzle. So once we've got the bird, I would cut the wing and put that on top. So you're layering it on top. Then I would take the tail feathers and I'm going to add them on to here. Then I'm going to put my leaves on and my stalk. And I think that's all of the applique pieces to go on there. And once they're down, as I say, then
Charlotte.
Yep. You all right, Rita? Are you all right, Rita?
I can't see your pictures. I can't see down.
I can hear you.
I can't see.
Oh, you can't see. You might need to swipe. You might need to move across. If you are on gallery view.
What
Oh.
you're doing?
You might need to, can you put it on gallery view, Rita, in the top right hand corner?
What to do?
You tap on the
Can you, have you managed there, Rita?
Okay.
Top right hand corner, if you take your cursor over it, it says view and you can put it onto a gallery view and then you should be able to see everybody. Okay. Okay. Okay, so that's the plan with the applique. Is that all right with everybody so far? That okay? Right. So that's the idea with that. As I say, I'll keep going. I'll do the heat transfer bit and I'll do the stitches and then we'll just have a little bit of time to ask some questions. And if you want to work with your applique, we can do that. Okay. Right. So the next bit is the heat transfer. Okay, so you've got your numbers. I know this is a number 4 and it should be a number 1. I apologize about that, but I'm just going to use that to show you. You've got your numbers and they're back to front. When we place them down on the fabric, so with the printed side down, okay, onto the fabric, we can transfer it over that way. Now you might want to just cut around the number to make it a little bit neater. The only real advantage of this is that sometimes you get a bit of a filmy kind of, just trying to see if I can go, a bit of a filmy kind of look where the blank bit is. It looks like you've got a film across the fabric and you've got a really nice piece of silk there. So if you just cut around it, I don't know if you can see, it just means you've just got the print of the number as opposed to the bit around the edge. So I'll just do that. Okay. I'm going to leave the middle bit because it would be a bit of a faff to get that off. Okay, I'm going to put that down and then I'm going to iron over that and it should just transfer Hopefully it works. It worked earlier on for me. Yep. So once I've done that, I'm just going to peel that off. Okay. And that's transferred the number onto the silk. Okay. We're going to use the little template, the hexagon template that you've got, to make this little hexagon shape. So that's kind of going to be like a repeating factor in the designs that keeps coming through. And to do that, we're going to actually just iron around this. We're going to press the creases into it. So we're just going to just fold it around and we're going to press it around. So that's what I've done, if you can see, with that one. So I've actually just gone around it and used the hexagon just to get the crisp edges. It's a little bit off center there, isn't it? I've just realized that. So yeah, make sure it's in the center. What looks nice as well with this, and you don't have to, but you might want to stitch around the edge of the number with a running stitch. So before you actually put the creases in, you might want to keep it open and just do like a little running stitch all the way around your number first. Again, it's up to you if you want to do that. Your numbers are a little bit darker because I was worried they weren't kind of showing up so much on here. So you might not feel that you need to do that. So that's completely up to you as well. So you would press round and then just close it back up. And that's going to be ready to just stitch in place. So the stitching again is just tiny little stitches, kind of over sewing it in place. And what I wanted to say as well is, if you want to kind of go a little bit off piece with these stitches and kind of make up your own sort of marks with it as well, that's completely fine. It doesn't have to be, you know, as specific as mine. Sometimes it's just really nice to use different stitches to get that kind of different texture in there. So that's the little hexagon, that's the heat transfer. So I hope that's all right with everybody. Okay, and what else have we got? You've got your bits in here as well. You've got your little lacy bits there to build it up, and you should have bits of a little bit of netting. So again, just to kind of build up the textures really. So the netting you can trim down, and that's just kind of going to sit, whoops, I'll just move this back a little bit so that you can see. That's going to kind of just sit to the left of the pear, and then we can trim this off a little bit and neaten it up. So take off any of those little bits that are sticking out, kind of neaten that up all the way around, and that's sort of layered on next to it. And then you've got your little number kind of on top as well. So you're starting to build up the layers on there. So you've got the applique. Obviously I haven't finished all of that, but you can get the idea. You've got the layers here with the heat transfer. So then it's really about embellishing it with embroidery and then with some of the beads and sequins. So what I've done, I've just got an embroidery hoop, and I thought I would just show you some of the stitches that we're using in here. Just have a quick drink. And then I can stop the record button and then we can have some questions and things. So stitch wise, we've got, if you can see there, chain stitch around the pear. We've got lots of back stitch, so really kind of straightforward back stitch. We've got running stitch. We've kind of just got these long stitches on the leaf that go across. So that kind of what I was saying about feeling free to change the design a little bit and, you know, have a go at something different. We've got like a feather stitch coming down on the leaf there, and just some over stitches on here, and a little bit of back stitch there for kind of the branch bit. You've got a gold thread in there as well, so you will need quite a big eyed needle for this to make sure you can get it through. But it is quite nice to work with, and it just highlights, it just gives that little bit of kind of golden flicker in there. and the same on the sort of stalk. So I've tried to just give like little flecks of gold, and then little bits of texture with the buttons, and with the beads and the sequins. Okay, so I've got my embroidery thread, my needle threaded up here. So it's threaded up single, and I've just pulled it through at the top. And then I've got a knot on the other end. And I'll just run through some of the stitches for you, just as a bit of a recap. So we've got a running stitch. So this is just a really simple in and out stitch where we're going into the fabric and then we're coming back up. We're going down. So this is like a tacking stitch, if you like. If you were tacking, there would be bigger stitches. I'm going to keep these fairly small. And the idea is that I'm trying to make the gap the same kind of size as the stitch. Okay, so that's the running stitch there. If you can see in the gold on the bird's tummy, that's just running stitch, just in lines coming down. Okay, so just really simple, coming down in lines, but it just adds a little bit of texture to that. Back stitch, so this is if we're wanting to do a continuous line of stitching. So we're actually going to work back towards ourselves with the first stitch. So it's coming towards me, and then I'm going to come up, leaving a gap, and then I'm actually making that link up with that first stitch back towards myself. So I'm creating a gap, and then I'm filling the gap in. So creating the gap, it's going a little bit wonky, and filling the gap in. So this is a really good stitch for edging things, going around the edge of the bird or the tail feathers. Really simple. Okay, so you can just see that's a continuous line of stitching there. Okay, so that's running stitch and back stitch. What else have we got on there? Chain stitch. Okay, so this one is done by making lots of little kind of loops, so little chains. So we're going to make a loop like that, and I'm going to go in at the beginning, leave a gap, and bring my needle out just on top, and then pull that through. Okay, so that makes the first chain. So I'll do that again, and again I can recap these. So make the loop, take my needle in, bring my needle out. My needle needs to be on top of that thread when I pull it through to make sure that it just catches it and makes a loop. So I do that again. Okay, and make a loop and take it through. So if you're doing this for the first time, have a practice. Start off with fairly big loops and then go a little bit smaller as you kind of get more confident. Okay, so in, making sure that my needle comes out on top and pull that through. Okay, so that's made the chain stitch there. Okay, what else have we got? So around the leaf, all I've done is just quite long stitches, quite free stitches, just kind of going along like this sort of thing. A little bit more random. So just following the shape of the leaf around. Okay, on there. On the other side of the leaf, we've got a feather stitch. I think this is the last one, so sorry, I don't want to overload you too much with loads of different stitches, but again, feel free to ask me and I can do these again. So with the feather stitch, you're making like a Y shape. So So this is a little bit tricky, but you're making like a Y, okay, like that, and then you're coming back up and you're coming down to that point. So you're holding the thread with my thumb and I'm going up to like the V and bringing my needle on top. Okay, oh, it's gone a little bit skew as I'm trying to hold it there. I'm making one long stitch down. Okay, it's gone a bit skew with. So I'm making a V, coming back through, making sure my needle's on top, and then coming down. And again, you can practice that and get that neater and straighter and kind of tighter as well if you want to. Okay, you've got a couple of little buttons which are stitched on just on the bird there. So you've got a couple of buttons in your kit. And these little sequins are actually just stitched on with a stitch. So I've come through the sequin, put the sequin on, and just done a tiny little stitch to the side of it to hold it on. So they're quite tiny little sequins, those ones. These flowers are actually held on with a French knot. So French knot is one of my favourite stitches. So I will show you it, but again, I'm more than happy to repeat these and do them again. The French knot just acts almost like a little bead on there. So it's kind of a stopper on the sequin rather than using a bead. So it just creates like that little center of the flower. So it is really effective. So I'm going to come up through the fabric, and this is where you need to kind of put it down. I'm going to hold the thread in my left hand, and I'm going to bring the needle down with my right hand. And I've only got a tiny bit of thread on there, which is not ideal. I'm going to twizzle it once, twice, 3 times around my needle. I don't know if you can see that very well. And I'm holding it taut with my left hand. And then I'm going to slide the needle back and I'm going to take it down on the spot. And I just need to give it a little bit of a tug as I pull it through. And it just creates like a tiny little, if you can see there, just a little French knot on the surface there. Okay. Right, and I've run out of thread there. So what I might do is stop the recording, and then if anyone's got any questions or wants anything repeating, we can do that. So just to recap, we've gone through the applique with the Bondaweb, we've gone through the heat transfer technique for the number and making the hexagon shape with the template. We've gone through running stitch, back stitch for a continuous line, chain stitch, feather stitch, and a few random long stitches and French knots, which should be everything for you to complete that patch. So what I'll do is I'll stop the recording now, and then if anyone wants to ask any questions or wants to just crack on, we can do that. Okay.